Nityanandaya Gurave Shisha Samsara Harane Bhaktakaye Kadehaya Namaste Chitsaratmane Om Namah Shivaya Gurave Sachidananda Murtaye Nishprapanchaya Shantaya Niralambaya Tejase Om Savana Bhavantu Savano Bhunaktu Savakiryam Karavavahe Tejasvina Maditamastu Ma Vivishavavahe Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. How many of you have ever heard of a book called The Secret Life of Trees? Awesome. Anybody who's read that book, understands that our human opinion of ourselves is just pure arrogance. And having read that book, there can be no doubt in my mind that, anyway, it was so extraordinary to see living, conscious beings interacting with their environment and supporting each other in all the limited ways that they can, but extraordinarily. The whole earth is alive. There is one life on this planet, and like, the trees, human beings, human lives come as leaves come on trees and fall in their own season, as leaves fall from the trees and are recycled endlessly through the atmosphere of this planet until our own experience matures to the degree that we can step out of this cycle and merge into our own source. Was in about 1985 on Martha's Vineyard that when I used to have a retreat center on the vineyard. I lived there for 12 years, half the year. The vineyard is an amazing place about 3 months of the year. July, August, and September, it's wonderful. The rest of the time, it's like awful. But when I was on the vineyard doing those retreats, I presented to my students then a paper that I had created, written, and a new theory that I was giving people, and I called it the Cookie Nookie Theory. And I'm not going to deliver the whole thing for you now because it's just a departure point to talk about something deeper. But the Cookie Nookie Theory is that, basically most people exist to eat and reproduce. And that's it. And that is so. The most basic fundamental unit of all physiological and biological life is the cell. And there are two kinds of cells. There are non-nucleated cells, and there are nucleated cells. And it turns out that nucleated cells are actually, what happened a very long time ago when two non-nucleated cells got in a tussle. One ate the other and couldn't digest it. And so the nucleus of the cell is actually a different cell that has now become symbiotically completely intertangled so that we have a complex organism that became the basis for most of the biological life and all the complex biological life on Earth. The first adaptation was the nucleated cell. And basically, human beings. So one of the important parts of the cookie-nookie theory is that, there are approximately 10,000 times more bacteria in your body than there are human cells. 10,000 times. There are trillions of bacteria in this body. And in 1985, I was telling people bacteria play a fundamental role in our physiological processes. Of course, I think it was in 2012 in Scientific American that whole idea was first rolled out, in Nature, the journal Nature, and then reprinted in Scientific American. I learned this from one of my spirit friends who was giving me a lecture on, basically giving me shit, lecturing me about what a bunch of arrogant assholes people are. And so I want to go forward to say that we are 10,000 times more bacteria than we are human cell, each of us. And further, we know now that those bacteria play fundamental roles in our existence. For instance, our appetite is controlled not by us, not by our brain. It's controlled by bacteria in our stomach and our upper gut. Our immune system, the number of T2 cells circulating in our blood is controlled by a colony of bacteria that exist within us. Our insulin levels and our response to sugar is controlled by bacteria in our gut. We see this all over the place now. We know that our mood is, our stomach, our gut bacteria have huge influence in our mood. And the truth of the matter is they're just starting to peel this away. And when they finally sort it out, what they are going to discover is that you and I actually don't exist at all. There is no such thing as Nataraja Chaitanya or Swami Chaitanananda. No such thing. It is completely a fiction. And what we are is a colony of bacteria, many colonies of bacteria, which have come together, in a symbiotic relationship, adapting continuously over and over and over and over and over again to what? To climate change. Adapting to climate change, over the course of a couple of billion years, a complex organism arises, which is, we're a high rise of bacterial and cellular life. But the cells in our bodies, the human cells in our bodies, are not hardly even slightly different from the cells that make up a tree. We don't exist. This brain, and I recommend to you, and I have recommended it before, a book by David Eagleman, and it's an easy read. It is called Incognito. David Eagleman is one of the leading neurobiological researchers in the world today. He's based in Houston. He did a program on PBS called The Brain, which also is an interesting book which he published. And that might interest you because basically what David is arguing is, forcefully, is there's no such thing as free will. In fact, all of our behaviors are really a reflection of the competition for resources that is going on within us, between and among the colonies of bacteria and cells and viruses and archaea, and fungus that are going on inside us. Have a fungus infection? Boy, what does that do to you? Anyway, you know what I'm saying. We don't really exist. And we all think, oh, we're here to do something, and we're going to be somebody, and this thing and that thing, We don't really exist at all. We are a convergence of simple organisms that have come together in a very complicated array. And I have to say, this human body is astonishing. I found out the other day, I did not know this before, probably you guys did, but do you know that our weight, and especially as if we have ever tried to control our weight is controlled by our resting metabolism rate. Not by our amount of exercise we do or anything. It's resting metabolism. And you know what controls our resting metabolism, which is really amazing to me? A set of muscles in each of our calves. These muscles act as second hearts. We have two other hearts, one in each calf, which pumps the blood from our lower body back up into our heart and is operating constantly. And it is the strength, the texture of those muscles, which controls our resting metabolism rate. And so, as we have become increasingly sedentary creatures, the blood in our bodies pools because we don't walk. Human beings used to walk everywhere all the time because we mostly sit around. Our calf muscles get incredibly flaccid, flabby-ass calves. That reminds me of a whole other story about sorry asses. I can't share this in public, so but it's a wonderful story, and the focus of it is a group of priests, Brahmin priests in Kamakya, who I pointed out to my friend and student Kapil, whom usually accompanies me to Kamakya. I pointed out that this whole big group of priests were a bunch of sorry asses. And he had never heard the term before. And so I said, as we were following a group of them doing a perkama around the temple, I said, look at their asses. But they have no ass. Their asses are so small, so flat, so sorry, that their ass won't even hold up their lungi. They have to have an extra rope tied around their waist to keep their lungies up. Well, this went on for a while and got, it was one of those moments when you start cracking up and you can't. But the thing is, Kapil, this had never come into his head ever in his life. And he spent the next 5 days, and we'd do our perkama, and he'd start laughing and say, I can't take my eyes off these priests' ass. So the next thing I'm going to tell you anyway, of course I would, nobody else would, and this will get edited out of the video, but so then I went on to tell him that, well, Kapil, the other thing you need to know is sorry asses have little dicks. Well, you just can't imagine the fun I had with this. For the remainder of the month I was in Kamakya, it was like hysterical. Okay, sorry for that. I just couldn't help myself. We are these complex hierarchies of cells. Now, the thing that makes this work, and the reason I'm telling you this, what makes this all work? All of these cells are capable of communicating together, and they communicate together, and their communication, their connections, their networks system, and their hard disk drives are our brain, but also, interestingly, our fascia. We have 3 levels of nervous system, not 2. The fascia is also a whole other nervous system. The complexity of this thing that we walk around in is amazing. So, and the frequency of our nervous system is what facilitates the communication. That's basically the same way as your computer. We are an electrically connected, complex organism. And the frequency, these frequencies have been identified. I mean, the Earth has its own frequency, I believe. Patty, is it Symington? Didn't we talk about it on the, who talked to me about that in Gold Beach? Schumann resonance. Thank you, Michelle. It was Michelle who was telling me. The Schumann resonance. It was Tesla who, and not Elon Musk, it was Nikola Tesla who discovered that the Earth itself has a microwave frequency that fluctuates a little and, is actually been observed recently to have fluctuated quite a lot. I think, the Earth is freaking out that Donald Trump is president. I know I am. This frequency that is the Earth, is the reason why all of us feel good when we get out to nature after a little while. I personally like to go stand up to my belly button in a river a few months a year, a few weeks a year really anymore, and wave a fly rod around to act like I'm actually doing something, when really what I'm doing is being present somewhere where all this electricity and microwave radiation is so diminished that I can actually start to connect myself to my own source. Don't misunderstand. We are children of the Earth. We're children of the Earth. And I've lived in urban environments pretty much for the last 40 years. I lived in New York, then I lived in Cambridge, I lived in Portland. Portland wasn't really an urban environment when we got here. It was kind of it was a refugee camp. Refugees from the urbanized East Coast when we got here. Now it's changed. This resonance resets us and brings all of the cells that are of the Earth that have come together as us back into a sense an experience of rhythmic, balanced interchange with themselves. These cells. The people who established cranial osteopathy, particularly Sutherland and Dr. Becker. By the way, that Dr. Becker, who taught me cranial osteopathy, is buried out under that statue, the limestone statue out in that you were sitting around. Dr. Becker and his wife are buried there. They understood that health exists within each of us. Health is present in each of us. You know, in contemporary medicine, Becky loves to remind me, but I never forget. In allopathic medicine, there is no definition of health. There's not even a discussion of health going on in our medical system today. There is only a discussion about symptom management. And the only symptoms that get managed are the ones that are profitable to manage. Health exists within each of us. And health is expressed as a state of rhythmic, balanced interchange between and among all of the different colonies of cells, you know, all the different colonies of bacteria and virus and archaea and fungus, and all of the colonies of differentiated human cells that comprise this body. In a state of rhythmic, balanced interchange, health is expressed. That expression changes, it fluctuates, you know, through various time periods. It is ever present. And the extraordinary ability of a human body to heal itself is just mind-blowing. Somebody here a couple years ago had an accident and badly injured themselves, destroyed an ankle, and rather than fuse it, the orthopedic surgeon amazingly cut through the tibia completely, attached this very complicated mechanism to the entire tibia, and then proceeded by pulling the two pieces of the bone apart a millimeter a day, proceeded to grow the tibia out 2 inches and reattach it to the reconstructed ankle so that the person had complete mobility in that ankle. And that's because, it's a separate topic. In this intimate universe, everything is constantly attempting to sustain its connectedness. And so all the cells of those bones were constantly reaching out to one another, and separated, they continued to reach out, and separated again and again and again, they reached out to restore a state of health, of rhythmic, balanced interchange among and within that structure. This is all happening based on resonance. Imagine what all these resonances that we are exposed to as human beings are doing to us. And now I hear that 5G, Wi-Fi, which is coming to everywhere, everywhere, putting up 5G Wi-Fi devices, every half a mile all over the whole country. I hear that 5G interferes with, various cellular systems, particularly immune system function in laboratory animals. Wonder what it's going to do to us. Wonder what it's going to do to trees and plants. In any case, resonance. What we are is a complex series of resonances which are sustained within a certain frequency range. And the ancient Shaivas understood this. They had the awareness that, the goddess herself speaks. She is resonance, and she speaks resonance. The one life that is the life of the universe, which is, alive with respiratory process, has as a function of its respiratory process a voice. Among the ancient Shaivas, breathing and speaking were completely interconnected, because if it didn't breathe, it couldn't speak, and if it did breathe, it spoke, even if it was a arf, arf, arf. Voice and breath are connected. What those people probably, maybe some of them did understand, was that, plants breathe. Fish breathe. Everything breathes. Life itself, we are permeated by breath, the breath of life. And that breath of life has its own frequency. And the smaller the scale, it seems, the more rapid the frequency becomes. Cells breathe. We know this. You don't have to be told, you know. Everything is breathing. And this breath has its frequency, and this frequency is the voice of the goddess. And further, all the form of all of life. In this whole universe that is alive, there is like an infinity of living beings. I mean, fortunately, most of the people that I know think I'm completely out of my mind to begin with. And you guys also, you know that. I'm totally crazy. So it's not a problem for you, I hope, to hear me say, one day I was sitting in my puja room and found myself traveling in some distant part of space when I encountered living gaseous beings that were, a tenth the size of a galaxy, who consume gamma rays, who consume intensely powerful energies to sustain themselves, and who have their own thoughts, who have their own communication in their own life. As an example, there's life everywhere, and it is the temperature and pressure of the environment that determines the shape of the life and how it's organized. Every life form is a function of its environment, and life is everywhere. Think of what a fish would be without the ocean. What would a fish be without the ocean? Non-existent, never having ever arisen. There would be not, the notion of a fish would not exist. And I say that to you to suggest to you that the entire atmosphere of the earth is comprised of water. Fish at the bottom, in the Mariana Trench, have a form and function that is an effect of the temperature and pressure of their environment. Fish at the surface are different. Fish walking around on two legs, in Portland, Oregon, temperature and pressure completely different, but still the atmosphere is permeated by water, have completely different shapes and forms and frequencies and resonances. It is with this understanding that the structures of that the ancients and even the contemporary, even us, see that it is resonance, organized in relationship to temperature and pressure of a specific environment, exist in rhythmic balance interchange with themselves and their environment, and it's all about the Word. I'm making a biblical reference there just to be inclusive. Although, well, I was going to say, although I've lost my affection for most of Palestinian-based religion, okay, never mind. I still quote the Bible, the Word. And so the ancient Shaivas appreciated the extraordinary power. I mean, even the miracle that's language. And for them, language, and their exploration of it, and I think this is also true in Judaism. I think the Kabbalah is in part a mystical exploration of the significance of language. The Word is enormously powerful. And this livingness that we are all an effect of is made known to us more fully, as we come into harmony with it, the subtle resonance that livingness is. And so the mantras of Sri Vidya are, the emergence of God knows how many thousands of years of exploration, and probably, it's likely that there were even more extraordinary and more refined mantras that exist at some point in time and space that were lost. As yet another digression, I'm sorry to do this to you. I should just say all this in 15 minutes and let you guys go rest your aching bones from having been sitting with me for so long. But all right, never mind. Let's just keep going. This word, these mantras, are intended to establish within us a resonance that unites all of these complex cellular structures, bacterial, viral, etc. structures that compose us and which convince us that we actually exist. Once you read David Eagleman's book, you will wonder. I actually already knew, but I was like reading his book for evidence to support my argument. But once you read his book, I'll give you an example from him. David doesn't believe in free will. Did you know that in the United States, 96% of all violent felons in American prisons have a history of head injury? You'll read this in his book. 96% of all violent felons have a history of head injury. With that kind of a percentage rate, people incarcerated for violent crime are not acting out of free will. They're acting out of some compensation mechanism that has been established in their physiological form and function as an effect of some kind of serious injury, and they have no idea what they're doing. And he's established a foundation, actually, to eliminate the death penalty and begin to try to address the question of head injury and, its effects. Now, this is something I don't know if you know this about me, but I've studied homeopathy for about 30 years. And my personal experience of homeopathy is that it is the most unbelievably amazing, miraculous system of treatment and powerful system of treatment on the planet. It's complicated because it takes a long time to learn, and it's further complicated because most people, the real problem in homeopathy is most people have no idea what's wrong with them. So it takes time to work through the story and sort out the issues. But in homeopathy, we recognized for a long time, since almost the first months I was working in homeopathy, we understood that head injuries, one of the main symptoms of head injury is violent behavior. So the resonances that organize this physical body, which sustained in this brain the delusion of a separate existence and a separate and unique identity for each of us. Mark Gaffney has written a book called Unique Self, which I argue is nonsense. The only uniqueness, there's only one thing unique about any of us, and that is our geographical location in space-time. Otherwise, all structures, processes, and constituents are exactly the same. It is because of our unique location in space-time that we are exposed to various pressures, different pressures that evoke different behaviors. But in the big picture, all of our behaviors are not unique. They are simply an effect which, we can see replicated over and over and over again, as one leaf, one human body vacates a geographical point and another human body comes into that point. The same pattern happens again and again and again. It's not unique. And so we can shed ourselves of our arrogances and also of our misunderstanding about our own nature. And coming into the experience of the fundamental resonance of the goddess through the practice of, just being in touch with ourselves, finding our breath. In finding our breath, and finding the resonance of our breath, and then engaging the mantras, we can expand our awareness from the limitation of this physical mechanism that we are, this complex organism, into our environment further and further, and begin to appreciate and be amazed by all of the influences that are constantly happening to impact us. Not to identify and solve problems, but rather to experience the wonder of this awareness which is constantly revealing, allowing us to participate in a profound experience of beauty that is flowing, flowing, flowing within and around us. The wonderful thing about yoga when I first started was I could literally, I could feel a change in the resonance in my muscles as I practiced. And as this, sort of stuckness and weight fell out of my muscles and a flow was established, and an increased rate of flow was established in my physical body, what a relief I experienced. Simply to be in touch with our bodies, to be in touch with the resonance of our fingers and our palms, our elbows and our shoulders and our knees and our feet. I mean, how much does that bring us? Anyway, I can say, I'll put it to you this way. It has, in those simple efforts, the capacity to reveal inside us, a very great deal of joy. Just that. How unbelievably amazing. At least to me. So, these mantras that, from this practice, are mantras which have been coaxed out of the inner workings, the inner being of the breath of life as it is structured from within us. The classical model is, we talked about 9 chakras yesterday. I mean, actually in the beginning there were 2 chakras. If it wasn't the 3rd day of a program that I've been working quite a lot in, I would remember the name of the text that talks about this 2nd century text that talks about 2 chakras and 2 channels. And, all the way to now, we are discussing 9 chakras. And while we're talking 3 primary channels, we could also easily discuss 8 primary channels, or we could go on from there to talk about, 72,000. There are 1 jillion chakras in your body. And if you don't believe me, visit my Chinese doctor, and he will reveal to you chakras that you never knew you had by putting needles in them for you. Eek! Stimulating them. The hierarchy is that each of these chakras and each of the 9 chakras and each of the goddesses within those 9 chakras and each of their names, which is becomes a mantra, and each of their resonances, which is a bija, have been, contemplated for God knows how long. These mantras have been pulled up from the depth of you and studied and practiced and organized until the people who did them really understood that this was the right thing, and they wrote it down and transmitted it to their loved ones and their students. The mantras. These mantras are intended, much like acupuncture needles, but actually quite a bit more deeply impactful and effective, to stimulate the convergences of this energetic mechanism that is the essence of your physical body and your mind and your emotions. Our entire physical existence, this physical body and our nervous systems and our brains and everything, are actually hung on something that looks a little bit like a bird cage. Moni, do you have the bird cage up there? Hallelujah. You've seen this picture before, but there you go. And it is my experience that, you know, stem cells are all stem cells, right? And when we're a baby, when we're in utero, we're just a bunch of cells that are starting to divide. We are a zygote. What a word. The only thing is, I wish it didn't have that meaning sometimes, because I think it would be like the perfect name for an evil superhero. Maybe, you know, a parasite or a cannibal of some sort. Oops. Getting a little close there, aren't we? It could be that it already is. Anyway, these cells differentiate and take on specific functions based upon where they migrate, how this system unfolds, the energetic mechanism awakens, and the resonance of the energetic mechanism of each of us in utero. You know, specifically, the vibration of each chakra controls how the cells differentiate themselves into different organ systems. Because in the beginning, there's no difference between a brain cell and a liver cell and a toenail cell. But what is it that causes them, informs them, oh, you have to take on this job, and you have to do this work in this environment? It is the vibration that is present in the chakras. And each chakra, as it is stimulated, and in a day, each of our chakras is more active than the other chakras at a different point in time. And it calls forth from the system the resources that it needs, and according to its own radio frequency, it informs the cell, you are here to do this work, now get to it. Put on this uniform, wear this hat, you know, do this and do that. And it happens. And we, ta-da. The chakras are the seats of a computer system operating at the core of us, which in fact has access to all the information in the whole universe. All the information in the whole universe resides within each of us, you know, because we are connected to and an effect of the one life of the earth, which is the one life, you know, it is one of the forms of life that exists in this vastness that has not an infinity, but a very, very, very large number of differentiated living systems. We know that, for instance, you know, from our satellites that go out into space, that Jupiter and Saturn and Mars and Uranus and Neptune all have different songs they sing. We've heard it with our own ears. The planets have different songs they sing. Do we somehow imagine that the Earth isn't singing too, and singing in harmony in some sense or another, sometimes disharmony? The Earth sings anything like I do, constant, perpetual disharmony. And do we imagine that that song has no impact on our own existence? You know, I don't know if you noticed, I have a friend who lives here who is a very great Sanskrit scholar from Oxford. And we've been friends for like 30-some years. And I love him. Swami Lakshmanju, who was the last living lineage holder in esoteric Shaivism, you know, when, I met Swami Lakshmanju right after Baba died in 1982. And Swami Lakshmanju asked me if I knew Alexis. And I didn't then, but, you know, after Swami Lakshmanju passed away, I did meet Alexis, and we have been friends ever since. I think this is our 30th year. And he's a great scholar, but, you know, he makes fun of astrology. He thinks astrology is stupid. You know, and of course, I, living in India and staying specifically in Ganeshpuri, you know, regularly for sometimes for months, in the 70s and early 80s, used to, after the lights got turned out, after the Vishnu Sahasranam, used to stay up late into the night talking astrology with Chakra, who was my dear friend and my roommate all the time when I was there. We used to stay together. And I learned astrology from Chakrapani, and I've been interested in astrology ever since. And I have a big appreciation for astrology because I understand the planets sing. And the song that the planets sing, and the way in which the notes, the resonance that that planet sings, you know, ripples out across space and impacts the environment of the Earth on every point that this Earth is exposed to, I'm aware of. So, let's get back to these mantras. The practice of the mantras, specifically the practice of the bija mantras of the Chakreshvaris, the bija mantras and the Mool mantra, the main mantra of Mahatripura Sundari are extremely, extremely powerful tools. Now, I've been living in the yoga world, living in my own world, in the yoga world, for almost 50 years. You know, 50 years ago, I left America and moved into the ashram. I like to think of this place a little bit like Brigadoon. I'm glad somebody, finally a reference that I've made that somebody knows about. I think of this place as Brigadoon. It's a little piece of heaven that exists, you know, hidden, you know, in this earth that only becomes apparent, you know, at a very, you know, irregular period in time. These mantras are very powerful. And living in this yoga world, you know, I had no preconceived notion about anything. And I've really been devoting myself to, I looked at the text. Frankly, some people on earth have been able to make sense of Patanjali's Yoga Sutras. I could never. Now, maybe I'm stupid. It's possible. And also, maybe Patanjali's Yoga Sutras are stupid. Or maybe it's a very incomplete and badly transmitted, poorly translated set of shlokas, which, you know, are not continuous. I have encountered so many nightmarish translations. I mean, one example is there's an Indian translation of the Mahatma Manjari, which is a krama ritual text that, you know, I studied with Alexis. It is a nightmare it's as if, somebody is trying to tell you that, a Ferrari is a 1934 Ford. It's like, the difference is mind-boggling, truly. And so I have never, on faith, just taken anything in this yoga world at face value. And of course, coming out of Rudy, Rudy was bah humbug about a lot of it. And he was right. So coming to this place where through my own personal experience and my intense commitment to authentically understanding, not memorizing lists, but really knowing what the fuck I'm talking about, I've come to the place where the reason I'm teaching this system of practice is because it is a system of practice which I have complete confidence will get you anywhere you want to go spiritually within yourself. And, to the degree that you apply it, you can go, all the way to the end. Not everything that you will read about this system is accurate. And, there's so much background information that is embedded in the literature of the system. For instance, the Vamakeshvari Tantra is a combination of the Nitya Shodashi Karnava and the Yogini Hridayam. And the two texts are presented as one text, but in fact they have two different authors, and that's very evident from if you read deeply in the material. They've been combined together at some point, probably after the 11th century. And they speak about, their language is different and they speak from different depths, and they're very often contradictory. So I think I can recommend to you the Yogini Hridayam as it has been translated by our friend who recently passed away, Andre Padu. He's a wonderful man. He also wrote a sort of scholarly book called Vach, which is about the non-dual view of the voice of the goddess and how it is expressed. And this is a topic that I want to cover slightly. The voice of the goddess. I want to mention to you that when we think of the goddess as the mother, as Ambika, the eighth of the chakras, the Chakreshwaris, we think of Ambika as the birth mother of the universe, the birth mother of the other of the three goddesses who become the source of all manifestation. We are thinking of her womb, a space out of which magically life appears. The womb of the goddess is the deepest dimension of your own awareness. It is the deepest dimension of your own awareness in which all the universe, all of the information of the entire universe is present, and from which it is, you, to whatever depth and degree that you are able, and all humans, call forth, the knowledge that will facilitate for them their existence in rhythmic balance interchange with their environment. Give you an example. Everything in this room, every object in this room existed in the mind of a human being before it existed in the room. Right? Everything. Nothing in this room, from that Jain statue to the statue of Nityananda to this screen over here to my book, everything existed in the mind of a human before it became manifest. Oh, taken a little further, everything in this building, the building itself existed in the mind of a human before it came. Everything on this block, everything on this block, including the location of the trees and the plants, everything existed in the mind of somebody before it, everything on this whole earth existed, well, first, the natural world existed in the mind of the earth itself before it came forth. But, that creative imagination, that calling forth of a balance in ourselves between all of the various internal and external pressures and temperatures that we are exposed to, is the birth of every object and every action that populates our life. It's also the birth of every word we express, every word we speak, which is first a feeling before it is spoken, and before that it is what Alexis would call a precognitive impulse. Before that, it's an inspiration. Before it's a feeling. And before that, and even before that, it is the very mind of the goddess. So there are 4 stages of expression of the goddess in her voice. The goddess herself is responsible for everything in this universe, everything, and also every sound. And she's responsible for how the sounds are organized in order to continue to facilitate flow. Contact, alignment, and flow. Contact, alignment, and flow, as an aside, is my definition of the word yoga. Contact, alignment, and flow are 3 parts of what allows for union to happen. And what we are doing here today is working to establish a contact, alignment, and flow with the breath of life, from the breath of life within ourselves in its 3 dimensions to the breath of life that is the essence of the singular life of the earth, which is an effect of the life of the sun and the planets and beyond. So, in the system of practice that we are engaging, the first effort that we make is to establish ourselves in the experience of the resonance of the goddess that is our own physical body, that is the rhythmic balance interchange, of all of the different cellular structures which compose us. And I was really pretty gentle about the whole thing about we don't really exist. But I want you to know my own personal understanding is we don't exist. Everything going on in your head about you is a fiction. Me too. The one brilliant thing, there are many brilliances about Nityananda. Nityananda is different than everything. I've been in India for 50 years, and in my day, I have known every great teacher that existed in India, and some known and some totally unknown. But I was really blessed because I was determined, that I was going to figure out what the hell was actually going on here. Because everywhere you go in India, the whole style of teaching in India is to distract and obscure and misdirect and indirect and make it as difficult as humanly possible for any student to ever get anything, because the truth of the matter is that gurus in India do not want competition. You know, and having the extremely painful and unpleasant experience of having my own students, you know, totally screw me over, I can sort of get it. But, you know, I continue teaching because I continue to have the hope that somebody is actually going to be committed enough to cultivate a pure understanding and experience of themselves and recognize the profound blessing and importance of, you know, connection and the extraordinary power of connection in awakening spaces which we could otherwise never travel in. I'll give you just a short example when I say connection awakens space. Okay, so I'm living in Connersville, Indiana. You know sort of what that's about, right? Nataraj was in Indianapolis. Indianapolis is like 20 orders of magnitude more vibrant than Connersville. Maybe 50. Connersville is sort of like, well, I think of it as a porta potty on the face of the earth. Yeah, it's not even really a toilet. And yet, I met Rudy, and the connection that I had with Rudy opened a space for me that has allowed me to travel through the most extraordinary spiritual teachers of my generation, to travel through the most extraordinary art collections of my generation, to meet the everything amazing. I have had, frankly, an unimaginably amazing life experience. And only because I was able to appreciate the power of this connection and understand that and hold myself unshakably in the space that it opened up for me. This hasn't been easy. It's not easy. It's incredibly painful at times. But, you know, it's incredibly painful just like a tree is painful, experiences pain as it grows from within itself and shatters its bark 1,000,000 times. And the tree doesn't sit there and tell you a story about, that asshole dog who pissed on it last week, who, and poisoned it for a while, and then, all these stories. It's horseshit. Connection and the honoring of space and the existence of that space in a profoundly devotional state. I could say surrender. There are lots of words. An unconditionally loving space is also devotional. To hold in that space with a pure devotion compels in that space with you the presence of the goddess who cannot leave. Nityananda said right before he died, he said, "Bring to me one person who has pure devotion, and I will not die. I will not go now. Bring to me one person with pure devotion." Because even God cannot leave the company of a person with pure devotion until he's given permission. Nityananda was just this unbelievable being who, received something amazing. He was, when he was young, and I think it only can happen when you're young, he was, some disembodied power, and some people would call them ascended masters or something, some extraordinary disembodied being, took possession of Nityananda. Some guru put this being in Nityananda. And Nityananda went out. And his guru became that being. And that being took care of Nityananda. So Nityananda walked everywhere naked. He didn't need to worry about food, because if he needed food, that being would go out and grab somebody to get and put an idea in their head that they had to bring food to Nityananda, and he'd have it. If he got sick, the medicine came. If he was attacked, you know, all of the spirit powers around him defended him. One time, some guy gave Nityananda a poison beetle leaf, and Nityananda took it, knowing it was poison, and he ate it, and the guy died. This is true. This is witnessed. I spent about 5 years traveling in Kerala, gathering stories from the last of Nityananda's living disciples. And the guy who told me this swore he was at the wedding when it happened. And the guy died right on the spot. He was an asshole. How did that happen? The spirit took the poison out of Nityananda and put it in that guy. And Nityananda I met a number of people who had this kind of experience, who were completely infused with some, and had become symbiotic with some power. And for the most part, they have become corrupted. I mean, in fact, Nityananda is the only person I've ever met who wasn't corrupted by that. I didn't meet Nityananda, but everybody I met was corrupted. Because the Spirit will constantly tempt you to do something for yourself. And if you give into it, then it will take part of what you have taken for yourself, it will take for itself. And if you give into it, then slowly, 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 you become corrupted. And you become slowly a criminal. Nityananda was completely, absolutely perfect in his dealing with the spirit guru that he had. He never allowed even one person for 1 second to become entangled in his life. He didn't give a shit for any disciple. He didn't give a shit for any money. He didn't give a shit for anything. You know, but he didn't have to. You know, not like me or not like us. We don't have that power. And so we have to worry about where we're going to eat and how our loved ones are going to have medicine. And we have to worry about, to some degree, everybody has to worry about their existence. And that's just the way it is. And it's not a bad thing. But Nityananda had all of this power, and so much so that I believe, toward the end of his life, he dissolved himself completely, and the spirit guru that he had dissolved completely, and Nityananda was just a portal between, he was like a hole between the earth and the spirit dimension, because so many things were coming and going through him constantly that he was like, an 8-lane highway. And not all of it was beneficial to all of it was beneficial to everybody, but not all of it was kind. Because, the ethical, first of all, morality, the goddess doesn't know anything about morality. There is no morality in any goddess worship program. Put that out of your head. The goddess knows ethics. The goddess exists in everyone. The goddess honors herself in everyone. The goddess respects herself in everyone. And the goddess respects herself within herself. But the goddess judges nobody, ever. Nothing. And it's only when we free ourselves from that whole kind of judgmentalism, that moralism, that we have released a tremendous burden on our mechanism to be able to go ever more deeply in ourselves and discover the truth about our own nature. We are nothing but the breath of God. We are the breath of God. Beyond that, we do not exist. That breath feels so good. It feels so good. Holy shit, it feels so amazing to feel that. It is, dare I say, a liberation. And it's happening in you right now 12 times a minute. And when we decide, when we commit ourselves to prying our heads out of our ass, sorry, that's a Kentuckyism. They can take the guy out of Kentucky, but you know that. It's that simple. And then, through the engagement of these mantras, and mantra means, one of the important things mantra means is protecting the mind. Protecting the mind from what? Well, I mean, a simple way to put it is protecting the mind from all the bullshit that's going on in your head, right? But another thing is, we live in this world in which we imagine ourselves to exist and be the top of the food chain when absolutely we're not. And so much of the self-hatred and negativity that we experience has nothing to do with us at all. It is, the effect of the disappointments of our ancestors, which was basically caused by parasitic spirits that live in our family tree and just keep, jumping on whoever has come next. So mantras protect us from this negativity, protect us from the crap going on in our heads, protect us from all of this notion of I'm not good enough, I'm not smart enough, I'm not loved enough, I'm not rich enough, I'm blah, blah, blah. Protects us from that, and bringing us into the awareness of the goddess that is the essence of our own life. I just sometimes I want to smack myself. I mean, what do I need? What did Nityananda need? Nityananda needed nothing. What do I need? Well, at this point, I need nothing. Everything I need, exists in the form of you. And everything that I worry about, whenever I worry for you. Because I don't really exist. So, what I want to do now is I started to give you the Ganesh mantra before I went. Sorry for that. But I want to give that to you now. And I think, I put on the schedule that I was going to do darshan tomorrow, and then I thought maybe I don't have time to do darshan because I have to finish the mantras and talk about the puja. But what I'm going to do, because I want to hand you all the card, first of all, Moni, who's been brilliant through this whole process, and tomorrow we'll give her a big hand. Well, okay, we'll give her a hand now. Thanks, Moni. Because this has been one of the busiest periods I've ever passed through, Moni's just been a champ. And she and Guy Boster made these beautiful cards that have the mantras written on them and printed on them, and I want to hand them to you myself. So we'll just do a brief darshan tomorrow at the end of it, and a quick hug and an exchange of mantra cards, and I also have another little something to give you that I brought Rudraksha beads from Pashupatinath in Kathmandu that I had blessed at the Samadhi Shrine of Nityananda, which then I had sent here so I could give them to you as part of this whole process. So anyway, we'll do that tomorrow. And you'll have all the mantras written down for you so you don't really have to write them now. But the Ganesh mantra and every goddess puja, mantra, the paying respects to Ganesh, because Ganesh is the protector of the abode of the goddess, but also the Ganesh is our own body and our own I, our own self-awareness, our own I awareness is Ganesh. So we want to get in touch with that. We want to feel it as we start our puja. So the mantra is Shrim Hrim Klim Glaum Gam Ganapatiye Varavarada Savajaname Vasamanaye Swaha. When I was learning this practice long ago, I had to do the Ganesh mantra 160,000 times before, they would go any further in teaching me. You don't have to do that. But I'm telling you that I had to do that so that you might, if you are inspired to, do this Ganesh mantra, in the beginning of your practice as much as you can for a while. The Ganesh mantra is also intended to remove any obstacles in your path. It is intended to attract to you any prosperity that you might require to support you in your endeavor to know the goddess. It is an important mantra. I'm eliminating all unimportant mantras, basically. This is an important mantra. Shrim, Hrim, Klim, Glaum, Gam, Ganapatiye. Vadavarada, Savajaname, Vasamanaye, Swaha. Once you get it, it goes easy. Shrim, Hrim, Klim, Glaum, Gam, Ganapatiye. Vadavarada, Savajaname, Vasamanaye, Swaha. In the previous incarnation of this program, I gave a mantra, a guru mantra, which was slightly complicated and derived from the Kubjaka tradition of esoteric Shaiva practice, and I gave that because it is a mantra of Bhairava, and Bhairava is considered to be the initial guru who initially, it was Bhairava who taught human beings, about the goddess, and it was Bhairava who conveyed the mantras. So I gave a Bhairava mantra because I've had a bunch of teachers, some outside, my root lineage, and I wanted to honor everybody. But I've decided recently to change that, and I still honor all the people I've studied with, even the people who cheated me, and I've been cheated a few times, and I still honor them. And I honor them not because they're criminals. I honor them because I am totally dedicated to living with my heart open in connection with everybody I have shared this experience with, irrespective of the outcome. Period. So at some point, whoever you're pissed at about whatever you're pissed at them about, you're going to have to forget it and forgive them and move on. Period. So, but the Ganesh mantra will support you in that, and it is the mantra that will attract to you the support that you require to go forward in your practice. Shrim, Hrim, Klim, Glaum, Gam, Ganapatiye. Vadavarada, Savajaname, Vasamanaye, Swaha. Then the Guru mantras I have changed to, now some of you are disciples of Sally Kempton. I mean, not everybody here thinks of me as their guru, and that's perfectly wonderful. And Sally Kempton and I have been friends for a long time, and she is one of the finest people that I have ever encountered in my life. She is, unbelievably beautiful, and I'm just crazy about her. I'll tell you as an aside too, that every time I do a Purnahuti, for every Havan that I do, there is an offering inside that Purnahuti that, that has her name breathed into it. Because she is my true friend. And I honor her deeply. But so what I'm getting to is whoever are your gurus, like for me, I always say Rudy, and then I go to Nityananda because I met Nityananda through Rudy, and then I do Muktananda. I do those three names. I don't do, and then I also remember Ram Dayal Shastri, who gave me the Kaula initiation, the initiation into the Kaula form of Sri Vidya. So, but you want to honor, as is standard in the entire Shakta Shaiva practice tradition, you want to honor 3 generations of your gurus. And if you want to think something nice about me in the process, I'll appreciate it. So like last night, the first thing I did was the Ganesh mantra, and I made an offering plate for Ganesh. Then I have pictures of Nityananda and Rudy on the altar. I can't have too many pictures there. And I do the Guru mantra, my whole set of Guru mantras, and I make the offering. And then I do the Goddess mantra. Now, you can do the Ganesh mantra, the Guru mantras, you can do that either 28 times, and that is, the theory is this. The theory is you have to do any mantra 21 times to actually set up enough of a resonance in you to have any kind of connection at all. 21 times. I do the mantra 21 times to establish the connection, and then I do it 7 more times. So, if you're doing, like in my daily puja, generally, I do the Ganesh mantra 28 times. There have been times when I have been under duress that I've done it 500 times. But so there's no limitation as to how much you can do it, and this is up to you to decide. But 28 times is the minimum. Do it 28 times. And then I do the names of my gurus 28 times each. And the truth is, all I have to do is like have the thought of Rudy, or the thought of Baba, or the thought of Nityananda, and immediately they're present. Boom. But I do the mantras because I want to savor that presence. And then I do the Goddess mantra 108 times every time. So there are 2 forms of the Goddess mantra. And that mantra is in its Kadi, there's 2 forms, the Hadi form and the Kadi form. Generally speaking, the Kadi form, which starts with K, Ka, is the mantra that is used when the offerings that you are making are entirely sattvic. So that means when I'm offering fruits and, like gur, you can't get gur in the U.S., but gur is sugar cane juice that has been dried to solid, and then it can be ground or not. So I fake it. In the U.S., I fake it. I use brown sugar. But gur is not brown sugar. Gur is brown, but it's not brown sugar. It's raw sugar. It's raw sugar cane juice that's been cooked down and then dried. But we offer, like sugar, or you can offer, anything sattvic. In that case, the Kadi mantra is generally what is used. And that is Ka, I, A, La, Hrim. That's the whole difference between Kadi and Hadi right there. It starts with Ka. Now, I haven't, I'll finish this. And then Ha, Sakahala, Hrim, Sakala, Hrim. The Hadi version is Hasakala Hrim, Hasakahala Hrim, Sakala Hrim. And that is the Kaula variant of the mantra. In that, then there are much more Rajasic mantras, or Rajasic offerings, like can be meat and fish and alcohol and other substances. Other substances that have been placed in a skull bowl and offered. A bowl made from a human skull is the classical version of that. We won't go there. At least not now. When I had that original vision of the goddess, she whispered to me a Hadi version of the mantra. That has been my trajectory ever since. Because of that, I am as I am now. So, within this mantra, just like in the Sri Chakra, all the tattvas are present. In each syllable, there is a set of tattvas. In each, this mantra is also broken down so that all the elements are present in the mantra. It is an activation of the tattvas in us. It is an activation of the elements in us. It is an activation of the gunas in us. So, the whole universe, in other words, the very essence of the form of the goddess is present in this mantra. And it is the practice of this mantra, and in a way that I'm going to share it with you, that is enormously powerful. The first person that I taught this mantra to who wasn't a direct student of mine was Sally Kempton. In doing this mantra, the Ka, I, E, La, Hrim is to be quietly, not spoken, but silently repeated with your attention in your sex chakra, in the perineum. Breathe in. When you breathe in, you have your attention in your sex chakra, and you say those syllables. And then breathing out, you say Hrim, which is the bija mantra of all goddesses. And as you say Hrim, you are shifting your attention. As you exhale, you are shifting your attention from your sex chakra to your heart chakra. And then breathing in directly into your heart chakra, Ha Sakahala. And exhaling again, Hrim, you bring your attention to your third eye chakra, and you breathing in directly into your third eye chakra, breathing up your nose directly into the middle of your head, you say silently, Sakala, and on the exhale, the reem goes to Dwadhisthana. And then, bring your attention back to the beginning. You have just cycled your awareness through your entire magnetic field, the entire energetic field that you are, and you repeat. And it is my experience that if you are willing to invest like an hour in doing this mantra, you will experience a joy within yourself that will turn you into a puddle of goo on your meditation room floor. A puddle of honey on your meditation room floor, not goo. This mantra has as its effect an experience of a joy and a beauty that is completely transformative of our experience of ourselves and our life. I am doing this mantra almost all the time, every day. And certainly at night, I'm doing it every night. Whenever I wake up in the night, I'm doing the mantra. And I continue doing the mantra when I'm awakened in the night, and I go back to sleep doing it, and I wake up again doing it. And that mantra, is going on in me now constantly, wherever my stupid mind might travel, wander, it's going on in me, and whenever I bring my mind back, healed mind, I find the mantra. It's ever present and has never left me. The sequence of breathing is not something, this is orally transmitted to you. You will never read this sequence in any book anywhere ever. But it is enormously powerful. And if you will simply use your mind, your attention, to shift through the chakras, you will activate these energy centers. And just activating, actually if you activate one center, any center, long enough, it will, as an effect of its own activation, cause the awakening of all the other centers. But if you activate these centers, one in each section of your energetic mechanism, the whole system will come alive very rapidly. Wah. And it is beauty. Beauty. We don't live to suffer. And, the idea in all Shakti Shaivism, as from the Krama to Abhinavagupta's form of the Trika to Sri Vidya and Kubjaka, the understanding is, and most certainly in the goddess Mahatripura Sundari, the understanding is that it is the experience of beauty that blows our minds. Abhinavagupta was brilliant, he was the first person, he developed a whole theory of aesthetics and dramatics and poetics in India that is still the most important, intellectual statement on those experiences that have ever been made. And why was that? Because Abhinavagupta had this very available, palpable experience of beauty that he could connect to, any creative endeavor. In Kashmir, it was mostly performing arts that were very important, much less the sculpture and painting is not a big deal in Kashmir like it is in other places in India. But Abhinavagupta had this very available experience of beauty which he could bring to his everyday life, and certainly the creative experiences of that he had in his life and use those experiences as a kind of model in which he could describe, his own cosmic view. The mantra brings us to a state of beauty which dissolves all of the unconscious cognitive structures present, within our own nervous system, and reveal to us, the one really enduring living truth about each of us, and that is, we are nothing but the breath of God. We are the breath of God. And that, as I told you earlier, I grew up for my day, I was considered to be politically a radical. I'm a socialist. Can you believe it? I've lived in a commune my whole life. I'm a socialist, I confess. Being the breath of God doesn't take away from me the right, and in some sense the responsibility for being concerned about, the welfare of the people that I share my life with. In fact, understanding that we are the breath of God in some sense, makes us available, if not responsible, to alleviate the suffering of other human beings and make available in our connection with them a little bit of the experience of beauty which should take away their suffering and bring them at least a little bit closer to the experience of their own divinity. People who are starving and sick and dying and abused and depressed and desperate have no chance for that. So, people, sometimes I say something political on my Facebook page and somebody writes something clever like, it's all Maya. I ignore it, but it just informs me that they don't really understand what Maya is. It's okay. Maybe it's just me, but I've never met the suffering person that I didn't want to help. And I think understanding, having the experience of the beauty that lives within you, having the experience of the infinite abundance and unimaginable possibility that is present in the core of your own heart and awakened through the practice of this mantra, you cannot help but, be sympathetic to the welfare of the people whom you share your life with. It's not possible. If you have a heart in your chest that is working, then, there's nothing more to say. Furthermore, the whole teaching that is embedded in the physical act of collecting and offerings and presenting them in front of the goddess. What does the goddess need anything for? The only, the theory is the only thing the goddess actually accepts is mantras. And that's because what the goddess accepts is her own self. What the goddess embraces, is our movement toward union with her. Just as the cells in that separated bone in Natasha's leg kept reaching out to one another every day, even over and over again, as they were pulled apart, and eventually made for her a leg that was stronger than the leg she had before. The goddess reaches out to us if we even slightly turn our attention and our hearts to her. She reaches out and continually, no matter what kind of tensions, no matter what kind of toxicity arises within us, as we throw off all of the accumulated disappointments of 100,000 years of movement in this world, she reaches out to us to embrace us. And whatever sin you think you've committed, whatever problem you think you have, that is nothing to her, nothing. Turn your head away from those kinds of thoughts, of any imperfection, and simply be present in the beauty that lives, that is alive in your own self, and you will be utterly and completely transformed, and everyone that you share your life with will be blessed. We make these offerings as an expression of that, honoring of the entire material world and honoring of the form of the goddess in every living being and in every living environment that we move through. These offerings are a way of reminding us that it is respect for each other and respect for life that is the fundamental discipline that we commit ourselves to as Devi Upasakas striving for liberation. So, look at that time. Tomorrow, I will walk us through the puja, because there's a few little features I want to just mention to you, and then I'll give you the mantra cards. But consider that, I'll say it one more time. Kayela Hrim, Hasakahala Hrim, Sakala Hrim. Kayela Hrim, Hasakahala Hrim, Sakala Hrim. Kayela Hrim, Hasakahala Hrim, Sakala Hrim. Hrim. Take it that you have received this mantra from me. It is a mantra that I have practiced for decades. Both in the transmission night before last and in the transmission tonight, the mantra will be the essence of what is transmitted. So consider that you have it. If you don't do it for whatever reason, fine, but respect it, keep it, and at some point, you never know, you may get hit in the head and say, whoa, where have I been? What have I done? And you may suddenly find yourself deeply immersed in it. People, as I've said the other day, people think Shaktipat is like a one-time thing, like buying a ticket to the movies. I got Shaktipat from Baba in I met Rudy, he gave me Shaktipat, and I, went back to drug dealing. It's not like that. It's not like that. If you have ever really received Shaktipat, you can never not be in the presence of that ever-expanding and growing experience of the goddess. Shaktipat is not a thing like the movies. It is a seed that is planted in you that as you water it and attend it, it grows to become bigger than the biggest mountain. This mantra that I'm sharing with you is a form of that Shaktipat, is a form of that transmission. It is a visible form that you can hold in your heart hold in your being, and holding it in your being, awaken the deepest unimaginable possibility that resides within you. So.
What was the sound from the first chakra or the second chakra?
Hreem. Hreem. Has ka-i-ela hreem. And hreem is the flow. And then ha-sakahala hreem. And sakala hreem. And you can coordinate this on your breathing. And effortlessly, you can breathe with this for hours. When I go into India, and I used to stay in this cave, which was underneath a temple that was embedded in a very extremely steep hillside. I used to go there and stay for a month. I would do that mantra all night long, every night. And it's just so easy. It just naturally follows your breath. It's not, you find the rhythm of your own breath and hold that awareness. It is the breath in us that connects us to the breath of life, which is the essence of the goddess who is, ultimate abundance and unimaginable possibility. Beauty which is mind-blowing and which dissolves, every disappointment of our ancestor and every cognitive structure in our mind and reveals to us the absolutely undifferentiated, non-dual nature of this universe. I'm sure you have lots of questions, and you're going to have to come back another time and ask me, because I don't think we have time this week. But now I have a Facebook page, so you have a clue as to how you might ask me if you really need to, and we'll go from there. So we'll talk about the actual puja tomorrow, and which can be as elaborate or as simple as you want it to be. Really and truly, the mantra is the essence of it all. But we'll talk about that, and then I will greet you and we'll go. So I'll see you in class this evening. Thank you very much for being with me today. Namaste to you all.